Welcome, and thank you for agreeing to be a panelist for the Arts Council's FY26 and FY27 Creative Aging Initiative. The Arts Council, with a mission of service to the entire state, views grantees as partners and co-producers in the delivery of arts programs, services, and experiences. As custodians of public funds, the Council insists on maintaining the highest standards of accountability, both in its operations and in those of the individuals and organizations in which it invests. We're reliant on your expertise to assist us in identifying the organizations that exemplify high artistic quality, fiscal soundness, and dedication to the audiences and communities they engage, and therefore are the best investment of the Council's dollars. We've developed this orientation webinar to provide you with a detailed overview of the grant panel process and to provide specific details about how to navigate through our online grants management system called SAGE. Technical assistance for grant review panelists is available from Arts Council staff via email and in 2 virtual office hours, which we will talk about shortly. Arts Council staff can provide guidance on how to review applications and answer questions you may have during the review process. Please don't hesitate to reach out and ask questions. We encourage questions early and often. The New Jersey State Council on the Arts has engaged with the creative aging field since 2021. We began this work as part of a national cohort managed by the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies and funded through the E.A. Mickelson Philanthropy. This project was focused on cohort-based professional learning for teaching artists and senior care providers, as well as in-person and virtual residencies and workshops for older adults. In fiscal year 23, the Arts Council launched its first Creative Aging Initiative grant. This was a 1-year opportunity that provided $10,000 for 2 8-day residencies. Based off of feedback, we learned the rigid structure of an 8-day residency did not support the full range of audiences we were trying to reach, and so we adjusted the guidelines to reflect residencies as well as one-off workshops, or a series of loosely connected workshops that met a community need. This year, the Creative Aging Initiative, or CAI, is expanded from a 1-year program to a 2-year program. CAI provides $10,000 to eligible arts organizations, libraries, veterans' homes, senior and community centers, colleges, universities, and units of government to cover costs for arts learning experiences with New Jersey older adults aged 55 and over. Successful applicants will receive $10,000 of funding for each year of the 2-year grant cycle, pending available resources. A CAI project is defined as an arts-based learning experience that directly engages older adults for multiple sessions. Projects may be sequential and build to a project culmination, residencies, or include a series of individual workshops that focus on skill building and development in the performing, visual, media, or literary arts. Projects must be an arts learning experience that serves the older adult population, age 55 and older, be offered without charge to the participants, and be led by teaching artists with experience in programming for older adults. What is an arts learning experience? An event, workshop, session, or residency led by an experienced teaching artist that focuses on hands-on arts learning skills and goals in the visual, performing, literary, or media arts. As previously mentioned, projects may be sequential and build to a culmination, or they may be singular offerings that focus on skill building and development. Either one is fine, and one option should not be viewed more highly than the other. However, the applicant must address the community need of these projects and how the structure of these offerings are supporting the participants' learning and engagement. What is not an arts learning experience? Proposals that include attendance at events, lectures, talks, performances, gallery openings, etc., and do not include hands-on art making are ineligible. These offerings may be offered as a support component for the participants, but grant funds cannot be applied to attendance at events. Non-arts-based experiences are also not eligible for this grant. For instance, projects that include the use of art therapy or utilize art therapists for clinical or medical outcomes are ineligible. Forms of expression such as comedy, culinary arts, floral and environmental arts, martial arts, and wellness-based movement like yoga or Pilates is ineligible. On this slide, you can see the key dates for this grant program. The guidelines were released in December of 2024, followed by the application in January. A robust series of technical assistance was provided beginning in December. This technical assistance included virtual office hours, where applicants could receive direct assistance, virtual webinars, which were a pre-recorded, bite-sized overview of the grant, and individual meetings with support staff. The application closed on February 27th. The staff then began an internal review process to check each application for completeness and organizational eligibility. We are now onboarding and engaging panelists, with applications to be released to panelists on April 2nd. At the conclusion of the panel's virtual review, the Arts Council's Grants Committee, which comprises of 6 board members, will meet and craft funding scenarios based off panelist scores and comments. The full roster of grantees will be voted on by the full council at a public meeting held in July. Please note, there will not be a virtual panel day for this opportunity. Panelist scores and comments through the SAGE system will be the final scores and comments for these applications. The role of the panelists is extremely important in the council's grant-making process. It is up to the panel's expertise and discernment to fully assess the application's quality and the organization's readiness to manage a state grant. To provide the most informed, objective assessment of the applications, we ask that panelists thoroughly and completely read the grant guidelines and rubric. These 2 documents detail in full what is expected of each applicant, including how they should frame their narratives, what support materials are needed, and how to present their budgets. As you begin your review, you will analyze each of the applications for the quality and clarity of their grant narrative, their support materials, and the soundness of their project budgets. Support materials for each application should complement the full application and uplift the systems in place to ensure a successful, accessible program. Important, for this review process, there will be no panel meeting. As you review each application, you will provide a final score and rubric-aligned comments for each evaluation criteria. The comments should be provided in 2 categories, strengths and challenges. An optional rubric workbook is provided to you so that you can work offline, organizing your work before entering your final scores and comments in SAGE. We hope that you'll provide us feedback on this process. Your input on the application review and your experience as a panelist will help us shape more meaningful, equitable grant panels in the future. We hope you'll consider providing us feedback at the end of this process. Important notes on the panelist role. Because council staff only review applications for completeness and project eligibility, we rely on the panelists to evaluate and assess the project's excellence and the organization's readiness via the evaluation criteria. We rely solely on your evaluation as guided by your expertise and our program's evaluation criteria to determine if the applicant has the capacity to execute the project within the context of the goals of the grant program and at a high level of quality. Your comments provide meaningful feedback to the applicant. They are shared anonymously, but are shared verbatim with the applicant. Panelists do not directly recommend funding. The Council's Grants Committee utilizes the panelist scores and comments to help them craft funding scenarios, which are voted on by the full Council in July. Your identity will remain anonymous throughout the process. However, panelists' names do become public once the grant awards have been announced. Evaluation criteria. Your expertise and discernment are needed when assessing the following evaluation criteria. This criteria was made public to the applicants via the guidelines, as well as through a published rubric. This rubric is the exact same rubric that you as panelists will be utilizing when scoring the application's quality. The rubric is available to you to utilize both as a standalone document as well as in each SAGE application. We will go through that scoring system a bit later in the presentation. The evaluation criteria are as follows. Assess the proposed project in relation to the audience reached. Do the proposed projects address community need for each year of the project? Assess how the project will be accomplished for each year of the project. Detail how the allotted resources, for example, staffing and existing or planned partnerships, are appropriate. Assess the proposed arts learning goals of the project. Assess the host organization's ability to provide an equitable, accessible project, including a barrier-free location and programmatic accommodations. Does the teaching artist and/or arts organization partnership have experience with the older adult population? Assess the appropriateness of the project budgets. Please consider the quality of financial planning and budgeting. The evaluation criteria for each grant are the most important foundation for your review. In the rubric, you will see a scale from 1 to 5, with 1 representing the highest score of exemplary and 5 representing no evidence of that criterion. Each criterion in the rubric is accompanied by text that will help you with your scoring. We encourage panelists to utilize the full rating scale. A score of 1 should only be reserved for those applications that are truly exemplary in their application of that particular criterion. Should you have any questions, concerns, or lack of clarity around any of the items within that criterion, we encourage you to please use a score that reflects those questions or concerns. For example, if an organization proposes a project which provides watercolor classes for older adults at a local senior living center, but the project budget shows unclear information, including the purchasing of equipment not related to the project, your score should reflect this lack of clarity. A score 4 in this instance would be appropriate. Please note, the scores you utilize for each criterion and your comments should be in alignment. Staff reserves the right to address any discrepancies noted in your scoring. For instance, if your notes reflect that the arts learning goals are vague and unclear, but you scored the application a 1, program staff may reach out to clarify this score. Panelist comments. Later in the webinar, we will walk you through the application portal called SAGE and the checklist you will use to record your scores. You will need to input a score and your challenge strength comments for all criteria for every application. Your comments should cite specific noteworthy strengths and challenges of the application. Examples of a strength comment could be, the applicant is considerate of the participants' needs and has put into place comprehensive programmatic accommodations that will reduce barriers to participation. An example of an application challenge may be, it's unclear if the proposed programmatic structure supports the needs and capacity of the participants. More thoughtful consideration of programmatic accommodations would reduce barriers for participation. Once your comments and scores are submitted for all applications, Council staff will review all panelists' comments and scores to ensure consistency. Your comments will be shared directly with the applicant. However, you will never be attributed to any one comment. Please ensure that you are providing comments that are aligned with each individual application. Copying and pasting comments between applications, regardless of the application merit, will not be permitted. Tips on panelists' comments. Keep your comments brief but thoughtful, focusing on 2 categories, strengths and challenges within that specific evaluative criterion. Think about what was missing or needed additional clarity, or those items that were truly detailed, specific, and exemplary. There is no need to comment on components of the application that are standard or descriptive about the project. Only focus on those comments that are evaluative, objective, and can assist the applicant in learning how to strengthen their applications for the future. The panelist review period is about 4 weeks. Applications should be made available to you in Sage on or around April 2nd with a May 7th due date. Statement on panelist bias. The New Jersey State Council on the Arts recognizes that despite our best efforts to create an equitable grant application process, it remains inherently imperfect. As a staff collectively committed to designing improved systems for equity in grant making, we are actively working towards improving the grant panel review process from beginning to end. You, in the role of panelist, are a critical partner in reaching the council's goals by helping us ensure the panel process is as thorough, fair, and equitable as possible. Bias on the individual level may manifest in a variety of ways during panel reviews, both obvious and covert, including the following, but not limited to racial bias, gender bias, age bias, personal preferences affinity bias, affiliation bias, confirmation bias, and general assumptions. We find that as people who are engaged deeply in the arts or in nonprofit management, we often have a bias towards wanting all organizations to receive funding, even when the application does not support the organization's ability to support state funding. We ask that you utilize discernment in scoring, utilizing the full rubric scale for all evaluation criteria to ensure that each application is being reviewed on its strengths and challenges, rather than our hope that all organizations be funded. Discernment is key, and we value your use of it. We also want to note that as a panelist, if you find yourself leaning into assumptions, assuming an organization meant X instead of Z, or assuming they do something they did not explicitly name, this is a form of bias. If you find yourself leaning into an assumption, do your best to ensure that you are scoring an application based only on the direct information that is placed in the application. No additional research will be permitted to confirm additional understanding. If something is unclear, score it as such. If at any time you feel that you're unable to make an unbiased evaluation of an applicant, or if you have a perceived or real conflict of interest due to personal or professional affiliations, let us know immediately. You will abstain from reviewing that application. This will be noted in Sage. Our theory is, when in doubt, get out. But we are always happy to discuss any conflict that concerns you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Doug West. I am an operations specialist here at the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, and I'm going to take a few minutes now to talk to you about the technical side of things. First off, we want to remind everyone that they're going to have to register with NJ Start. There should have been a link in your contract email. You're also going to have to fill out something that's called an AA302. It's our affirmative action certification. If you have some questions about that, you can reach out to us in operations. You'll get our contact information at the end of this segment, or you can try njstart.gov or call the Treasury number that you see right there on your screen. All right, so now we're going to learn how to use our SAGE system. That's the system New Jersey uses for administering all of their electronic grants. One of the things to keep in mind with Sage when you're working is that it's a live website. So it's not saving or storing anything natively on your machine. It's all going to a website, which means there can sometimes be delays in saving and accessing information. So keep that in mind as you're working. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to log in. You're going to want to put your username here in this section. And then your password right below that. What it'll do is it'll bring you to your Sage homepage. Again, we're going to wait a second while Sage loads. And you'll see on your homepage, you have what we call a task list. Now, your task list is going to look a little bit different than mine because the only thing you will see are these NJSCA 2026 applications for creative aging. You won't have any other information in there. You just click on this caret here, which will pull down all of the applications that have been assigned to you. Again, you'll probably have more in your task list than I do. This is just a test site, so it only has the 2 active applications at the moment. When you're looking at your application, you'll notice they're in at-home review, which is the portion of the process that comes to you, you'll see that there's a document number located here, and there's an organization name located here. These are both clickable links. If you want to learn a little bit more about the organization, you're welcome to click the organization link, but there's not a ton there for you. For the most part, where you're going to live is here in the document itself. So when you click on this document number on the left, again, Sage will think about it. It'll take a second to load, and it will bring you to the Forms menu. So this is an overview of all of the pages that are a part of that application for you. And there's a couple of different ways that we can navigate through this system. Keep in mind that while you have access to all of these pages and you can see all of these pages, some of them have information that really isn't going to be super useful for you. So you probably won't spend a ton of time on all of these pages. There's a couple different ways to access this Forms menu if you need to. You can click up there where it says Forms menu. You can also hover and you see you get this little pull down that'll allow you to jump into any of the linked form pages as you're going along. We'll start by just looking at this first page. We won't go through all of them together, and I'll tell you kind of how to navigate through all the different pages that you're going to encounter. So this first page, as it loads, is obviously the organization profile information review page. It's where you're going to get all of the basic information about the organization that has applied for the grant. You can see all this stuff, you can click on all this stuff, but you'll notice at the top, nothing says save. You can't alter any of this information. You can't ruin any of this information. All you can do is read this information. So don't ever hesitate to look at something because you don't have a save button. You can't change anything permanently on the site. When you're done looking at a page, when there's no more information on it that you're looking to get from it, you have a couple of different ways to navigate to the next page. You can hit the next button up here, which will do exactly what it sounds like, move you to the next page in the application. What's important to remember is that next button only works inside of the application. It will only move you to the next page in the application that you're in. It will not move you to the next application when you hit the end of the road. So that's what the next button does. The other thing you could do if you were done with a page is, again, just go back to your Forms menu, hover over, and then find the page you wanted to get into. The second page here that pops up is the panel category, type of support. Obviously, there's no real information here for you. So what you're going to learn is you're going to kind of jump around a little bit because there's a lot of stuff that you probably won't need access to. What we're going to do now is we're going to jump to kind of the forms that are sort of important to you. We're going to hit our Forms menu button so we can bring the whole screen back up. The places where you're going to spend most of your time are probably the detail summary, the grant narratives, looking at all the board charts and the finance information for the various budgets. Again, you can click in and out of these pages as often as you want. You can view them as often as you would like. There's no rush. This all stays open to you for as long as you're working on this particular application. When you're ready to start making some evaluations, you're going to want to look down here at the bottom for the Creative Aging Initiative evaluation form. This is where you're going to do your work, and this is where you're going to start to input information that you do have the ability to save. One of the things to be careful of or to be aware of, like I said earlier, Sage is a live website. So we encourage people to work offline, to take notes either in that checklist handbook that you were sent as part of your contract package, or in a separate Microsoft Word document or a notes document, so that you can copy and paste your comments into the form rather than relying on Sage to be the place where you do all of your work. Because if you have a website or a web connection that is unstable, you can lose work, and we don't want anyone to lose what they've spent time working on. So we're going to click here on the evaluation form. We'll bring this up so you can sort of see what that looks like. One of the important things to keep in mind while you're working is to let Sage load. Sometimes it may seem like it's taking longer than it should, but if you back out of or you re-click on a link, you run the risk of losing the information, especially if you're in this evaluation form that you've spent time entering. So as we move down the evaluation form, you'll see at the top the scoring outline, and there's a little button here for abstain. If for one of the reasons outlined in the earlier slide, you feel that you need to abstain, what you do is you want to single click on this little A to say that you abstain. If you accidentally click that box and you need to get rid of it, it's just a double click and that goes away. Each question has a copy of the rubric beneath it. Remember, the scoring goes 1 to 5, with 1 being the highest score. And then below each of the rubrics, you'll see a box where you can input your assessment score, again, from 1 to 5. The little red asterisk means it needs to be filled out. So if you try to submit this panel evaluation without putting scores in, Sage won't let you. You'll get an error message and it will kick you back out. As you go through, you'll put information in on the evaluative strengths and challenges associated with each of the questions and add that assessment score. At any point while you're entering information, you can save your work. You just go up and click the little save button here at the top of the screen. Important to note here, I wouldn't hit save next. It'll do the same thing. It will save your work, but what it'll do is it'll take you to the next page of the application document, which you don't really need. So just use the save button here. So you'll go through, you'll enter your assessment scores, you'll type in your strengths and challenges as you move down the way. And at the very, very bottom, you'll see a box and a confirmation checkbox. When you are completely done with your evaluation, you want to put in no more information, you want to change no scores, you're going to put your initials in this box here, and you're going to check right here. When you hit save after checking this box, that is going to officially submit your score. Your assessment isn't submitted until you put your initials in and you check that box. Then when you go up to hit save, what will happen is you'll see that your panel, this particular application, has been removed from your task list. You can no longer make any changes to this particular application or this particular assessment, and you'll have one fewer thing on your task list. In just a second, hopefully, Sage will load itself up, and I'll be able to show you what that looks like. Oh, remember when I said error messages? Here are some error messages. I didn't put enough scores in, so it's telling me I have to go in and add more information. I'm just going to head on home. And then we're back to our homepage, where again, you'll be able to hit Creative Aging Initiative and then move on to whatever the next application you need to assess is. Again, remember, your work will not be saved into a form unless you hit the save button, and your assessment will not be submitted until you put your initials in that bottom box and click that link, that little tiny checkbox at the bottom of the page. At that point, your application will leave the task list and you'll be able to move on to what's next. If you have any questions or comments or problems with Sage, just let us in operations know. There'll be some information on the next slide with contact information for Robert Warshinsky, for myself, with emails and phone numbers, so you can reach out to us so we can give you a hand if you need it. Thanks.
If you're in need of Sage technical assistance, on the screen, you will find further contact information for Robert Warshinsky and Doug West. If you have any questions about any aspect of the material covered in this webinar, please reach out to Samantha Clark, Program Officer for Arts Education and Lifelong Learning at samantha.clark@sos.nj.gov, as is noted on the screen, or at 609-984-7019, New Jersey Relay 711. We also hope that during this process that you'll provide feedback to us. We want to make this process more inclusive, more equitable, and easier to follow. Any feedback you can provide during this process will be deeply appreciated.